Good morning. This is going to be the story of creation. Very, very interesting story. One day, God was sitting in heaven. Huh? What? Oh, right. This is before there was any time. So God was sitting in heaven and... Huh? What? Oh, right. There was no heaven because there was no place, not physical and not spiritual. So there was no heaven. So in the beginning? Well, we are talking about creation. So in the beginning, there was God. That's it. So let's begin again. God was. And for some reason, it arose in his mind. We will use words which, by these words, we can understand, because it's kind of hard to say that God has a mind. But if I don't say it like that, it's going to be hard for us to grasp anything at all. It's because we have to speak in terms of what we understand. So let's use that term. It arose in God's mind to create a world. Now, why? That's getting way, way beyond us at this point. We're talking about the creation, not why we are here or why God decided to create this world. So, at a certain, again, we're stuck with these terms. At a certain moment, God decided to create the world, and that was the beginning. Now, what was the beginning? Well, it seems that when there was nothing, no time, no space, nothing. Could you imagine? No, you can't. Neither can I. But such it was. There was a time when there was no time. In a place where there was no place. So there's no time and there's no space. And yet, it comes into being a point, a singularity, if you would, a single point. And that single point begins time. And because it's a point, that is the beginning of space. And immediately, like in the next moment, but that moment is really, really fast. I don't know what we call it, but some scientists like to call that first moment that can be calculated, they call it a Planck moment, a Planck moment in time. The beginning, whatever this was, began to expand outward in all directions. This Planck moment began to expand at the speed of, well, the speed was incalculable. We'll call it infinite speed. And it began to expand in all directions. And at a certain moment, they call it this Planck moment, this universe at the point, this is a point. It's expanding outwards, and it has now reached a size known as a Planck. A Planck. It's a space. It's reached, and it's very, 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 very small. I mean, you know how big a meter is? No, bigger. I've expanded past this size of the screen. But in any event, a meter, you know how big a meter is? Well, if you take a meter and you divide it into 10 parts, now you have a centimeter. So now you have a 0.1. Now, if you take that centimeter and divide that into 10 parts, so now you have a millimeter. That becomes a 0.01. Well, if you keep on dividing each of those into 10 parts and 10 parts and 10 parts and 10 parts, 10 parts and 10 parts and 10 parts, you end up with something which is like a point with 42 zeros and then a 1. Or 35 zeros and then a 1. One is a Planck moment and one's a Planck space. It's one or the other, but it's very, 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 very small, either in time or in space. And that's what has happened after a moment. Very, very quick. But it's expanding very, very quickly. So that by the end of a second, 1 second, the universe has expanded so big that I think it's the size of a grapefruit. No, it's even smaller than that. In any event, you understand, this is, what is it that's expanding? What is this that we're calling the beginning? It's an energy that is expanding outward at the speed of light times the speed of light, faster and faster even than that. Now, if you know what the speed of light is, oh my gosh, I'm getting into so much math, you're probably all confused by now. But in any event, the speed of light is like 300 kilometers in a second. Well, you know how big a meter is? A meter is, once again, I've gotten past the screen. But you know how big a meter is? Well, a kilometer is 1,000 of those. So light travels 300,000 kilometers in 1 second. That's really, really, really fast. But that's as fast as light travels. But we're talking about an energy which is traveling not at 300,000 kilometers in 1 second, but if you could multiply 300,000 times 300,000, that's a 3 times a 3, that's a 9. And you have 300,000 is 5 zeros. So you have 5 zeros plus 5 zeros. That's 10 zeros and a 9. That's 90 trillion. 90 trillion. 3, 6, 9. That's been, no, it's like it's 90 billion. 90 billion kilometers. And it's traveling much faster than that. So this energy is traveling like we'll call it an infinite speed. It's just fast, really fast. And this infinite energy it's just I'll tell you how much energy it was. That energy is all of the energy that happened in the very, 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 very first Planck moment. That energy that came into being at that very first moment is all of the matter that exists in the universe today. Because all of that energy eventually turns into matter. You know, you take a nuclear bomb, you take a little bit of plutonium and you just do something with it, then it expands with all of that energy. So that's just this little piece of plutonium. Could you imagine how much energy there is in the entire universe? All of that was created in that first Planck moment, very, very, very small moment in time. And the entire universe of energy came into being at that moment and is now expanding at a speed which is like infinite speed. And what do we call that? Science doesn't have a name for it. At least not that I've studied. But we call it the infinite light. The Or Ein Sof. A light. Not light like you're able to see me right now because there's light shining in this room. But that's just one kind of light. But light, we're talking about energy. An infinite amount of energy was what came into existence. Now that infinite light, this is one with the Creator, because the Creator, in order to create this universe, well, the universe was in non-existence. Before time, before space, nothing existed. Only God was. Remember, that's the way this began. God was. And At a certain moment in his mind, he decided to create. Well, what's he going to create it with? There is nothing but God. Therefore, it must be that God has created this universe out of himself. But he took his light, his energy, and used this energy after a series of developing and hiding and developing and hiding, and how this is going on. You have to talk to some makubal who knows what he's talking about, but he won't talk to you probably because you're not wise enough or old enough, or you haven't eaten enough meat and wine or whatever. But the development of this infinite light has come down into a way that finally it can become physical. But physical, it's infinite light. It's traveling at an infinite amount of speed, moving and creating this universe, expanding and expanding in each and every Planck moment. Remember the Planck moment of 0.001. And now this Planck moment becomes a second Planck moment and a third, and they keep on adding one to the other, and the space is expanding outward in each and all directions. And as it does so, the heat is incredible. The amount of energy is infinite. But at a certain point, as it is expanding and moving and in each and every direction, out from that singularity that it started with, the speed begins to shrink and slow down. And it slows down, but it's still moving at an incredible speed, infinite. Well, it can't be infinite because it's slowing down. So we don't mean infinite when we say infinite, but compared to what we are familiar with in our frame of reference, it's infinite. Now, this speed is moving so fast. But at a certain moment in time, and now we have time already, because that point was the beginning, and expansion is happening, and time is passing. And at a certain moment in time, the speed with which this energy is moving outwards reaches a critical speed. That critical speed is the moment when all of that energy in a flash, like all that energy changes to matter. Well, not all of the energy, because some of the energy is still being used to push the energy out in all directions. But there's matter that has now taken hold. No, not lead and iron and oxygen. Way before that. We're talking about the building blocks of matter. But these things are so small that did you see that one? Just another one. These things are still in existence, but they're so small, and they're passing right through me and you and the earth. You realize that these things are so small and moving at such speed that you gotta talk to some scientists if you want to hear what these things are called. But this energy that has been transformed into matter now becomes the building blocks of the physical universe. And over time, the power of God that we call nature. Yes, nature. The natural unfolding of this universe became what we live in. The physical universe has been developed by God. We call that nature. Well, not exactly nature is God, but the source of nature is God. You see, in Hebrew, the word Elohim, Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Hey, Mem. So these letters, they have certain numerical values, and when you add them all up, it adds up to 86. And nature, Hateva, so nature is, when you add up the letters of Hateva, comes out to be 86. And we learn from this that the source of nature is Elohim, God. God, the name of God who is associated with nature and Hagbalot, boundaries and limitations. Because Shem Elohim, the name God, the name Elohim, is the name of God that is that power that binds and in boundaries and limitations the entire creation. And it is through Shem Elohim that this universe has developed and evolved over time. Bereshis bara Elohim Eis Hashemayim ve'Eis Ha'aretz. Shem Elohim is that power that has taken the infinite light and developed it, molded it, changed it, caused it to evolve into the universe that you and I live in. All of those steps are written in a very wonderful place. You may look into it anytime you'd like and find out how God developed our universe into a universe as glorious and wonderful as we have it today. God bless.